Hey guys, it's Mr. Abby from the Academy of Science and Citizenship and my lovely science assistant, Hunter. Today we're going to go over our notes for our local bee friends, and we are going to teach you guys how to do a little project to make your own little home for our local bees, like we were talking about last time. A lot of our local bees, not the honeybees that we know of that live in big colonies and they make honey and everything like that. A lot of the local bees that we're talking about, they live all by themselves. They're called solitary bees. Hopefully you watched our video Monday about how they live and how they make their little nests, and each one of them lays their own eggs and everything. There's no queen. Every solitary bee is kind of their own queen. They lay their eggs and everything in the little tubes like I showed you. So I went ahead and I did up my notes for this. You see how we've got the little box that they lived in and the little tubes. I also put some little labels in there. So that's the mom, and that's how she gets in. And then you've got your baby. See what I did there? They come out this way. You can see that we've got like a little larva. I did them in pink, and the little bee bread. So some things I wanted to go over with this set of notes. I got a title here. It says some local bees live differently from honeybees, the honeybee that we're used to. Down here it says some bees live and nest alone. They're known as solitary bees. So I've got some labels here for what I drew. You can see the mud. I try to do them in brown and gray. That's why I like to use colors in my notes. The mud means that they're mason bees, and then if you've got leaves, they'll usually be a little more dried out and less green. But the little green, the green that I put here is to represent the leaves that leafcutter bees cut up, and then they use to make their nests. You see how I've got little sections that they live in. And also something I really like to do when you're doing something small like this in your notes, I like to put a little arrow down to a zoom in area. So it's almost like you're using a microscope or a magnifying glass to look at the little cells here. I zoomed it in so you can see you've got your little grub or your larva, your bee larva. I know he kind of looks like a little snowman or something, but that's your bee larva. And then there's your bee bread, and I put labels. You've got your larva here, and then you've got your bee bread, which is a mixture that the mommies make of pollen and nectar for the babies to eat over the course of the fall and the winter before they develop into big old bees and then break their way out of the nest. So I wanted to go over our notes pretty quick on this one. I've already seen some really great notes. I got to give a shout out to Sunny. She made some wonderful notes, very much like these ones. Really great. She got some great pointers in there too. I really like to see her notes. So, as promised, me and Hunter are going to show you we're going to show you how to make a bee house of your own. Now, you don't really need anything complicated. I know my mom's bee box has like clear glass and it's all drilled through the wood so they can live in there. We don't need any of that. All you're going to need to make our homemade bee nest, and it's going to be able to be a home for your mason or leafcutter bees. They both like these kind of homes. All you're going to need is a tin can. We had some raviolis today, right? You're going to need some paper. I really recommend use some scrap paper that you've already used for something that we were recycling, we're reducing, and we're reusing things so we can be good to the earth while we're making homes for our babies, our baby bees. So we need some paper, we need a tin can. I recommend 2 toilet paper rolls and a little bit of tape, just a tiny nib of tape for each one. And what we're going to do, I also recommend some scissors so that you can cut out your piece of paper. So I've already kind of prepped some of this. Use your scrap paper and cut them into little strips that are going to be just, and I forgot one more thing. You might want a little bit of glue. It's not absolutely necessary, but I highly recommend it so things don't rattle around. We'll see that in a second. So Oh, yes, and a pencil. Good work. Thank you. We also need a pencil. So we're going to show you where all those things come in there. You're not going to be writing anything, so don't sweat it. What we're going to do is we're going to take our can, and we're going to cut pieces of paper. We got some old coloring paper that we scribbled on a little bit. You're going to cut your piece of paper so it's just a little tiny bit shorter than your can. Bless you. You're going to cut your paper so it's just a little bit shorter than your can. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to give Hunter this one. I'm going to take one for myself. What are we going to do, Hunter? We're going to take our piece of paper and we're going to roll it up over our pencil.
It takes kind of a struggle.
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a challenge, but it gets easier with each one you make. You're going to roll up your paper onto your pencil. And then you're going to pull that pencil right out. Now what you should have is a little paper tube. That's where your bee's going to live. Then all you need is just the tiniest nib of tape. Don't you go too crazy on the tape. You don't want to waste it. Yes, ma'am. The tiniest nib of tape. You see how small that piece of tape is? Just the tiniest nib of tape. We're going to boop. And we're going to tape our tube just so it stays closed. You don't have to tape all the way up and down it. You only need a little nib. Ooh, that's an even smaller one. Little small piece of tape. And we're going to put it on the line where the paper ends so that we can keep our tube together. See that? Not too complicated. And you're going to make a little tube. What you're going to do is you're going to make a whole bunch of these. Whole bunch of them. Enough to fill up this can. So what the toilet paper rolls are for is we're going to kind of stick them in there. We're going to kind of mash them down a little bit so we can fit 2 in there. See how they fit in there? And that's going to keep everything from rattling around inside. But before I want to get too far in putting my toilet paper rolls in there, we're going to use a little bit of glue on the bottom to keep everything a little more stable and secure. Now you probably have like the little school versions of glue, little ones with the tips on them. I don't, so I got to be really careful about it. I'm just going to use a little bit of glue there in the bottom. Bloop. Just a bloop. All you need.
Why don't we jiggle it around so it spreads?
Oh, that's a really great idea, Hunter. So we're going to just kind of roll that around so we get it all down there on the bottom. Oh, yeah, it's kind of gross, isn't it? We're going to get it all in there on the bottom of the can so that we got a nice coverage on the bottom there. You see that? So we just want a little bit of glue on the bottom there so that it covers the areas on the bottom where we're going to stick our stuff. So then I'm going to stuck. Yeah, you don't want them getting stuck, so let this dry before you start putting it out for the babies to live in. It's a very good thought, Hunter. We're going to stick our toilet paper rolls in there. Boom. Make sure they get real stuck there on the bottom. Then we have actually prepared our own, a whole bunch of these little tubes. Again, a little tiny piece of tape. Exactly. We're going to stick those in there one at a time. So go right ahead, Hunter. We're going to stick them right in here. You want to make sure those tubes touch the bottom with the glue. And stick a whole bunch of them in there. Here you go, Hunter.
Okay,
stick a whole bunch of them in there.
One time I tried to make a beehive and it just broke. I didn't really know how to make one. I decided to do it my own way, but it didn't work.
Well, yeah, sometimes that happens. That's why we're going through the instructions, right?
I used my Play-Doh holder to hold the rolls together. And it didn't really work at all.
Okay, well that's why we're using a tin can. That works a little better, right?
Yeah. I tried to use my own the tomato soup can that Mom gave me.
Yeah.
Tried to, but it didn't work.
That's a really good point. If you're using a soup can, those can be a little bit smaller. So you might want to make sure that you're probably going to use less tubes. You might not be able to fit both of those toilet paper rolls in there. So we're using a full-size can from a can of raviolis. Nothing complicated or fancy.
You can't see the toilet paper rolls anymore.
Yeah, you get them jammed in there real good. You probably won't see the toilet paper rolls too much anymore. Let's fit all the ones we can in. So you want them in there pretty tight. So you're going to be squeezing the last few in there a little bit tighter. So there's lots of little, what I call them cells. but you've got lots of little tubes for the babies to live into. Do you think we got any extra space in there for more tubes, Hunter?
I don't know.
I mean, I think we're running out of space. Let me get that last one in there. Boom. And what you should have by the time you're done is a whole bunch of little tubes in there. So what you're going to do, once you get your little tubes in there, is you can find a way. You can use some string, or there's a whole bunch of different ways you can hang these up, or you can just jam them in somewhere between some rocks or into some wood, anywhere you can think of to jam them in there so they'll stay stable. You don't want it flying away in the wind.
We're going to put ours in the window, I think.
Absolutely.
We already bought one, and it just broke, so we had to put it up in the window.
We're hanging it by the window, so we're not just like jamming it in the window, but yes. So you want to get this somewhere where you can put it where it won't go flying away or anything. You want it fairly secure when you set it up. But yeah, you should have a bunch of these little holes. Now, leafcutter bees will live in something like this. Mason bees will make homes and stuff like this. And the way you know, probably by this fall or next spring, the way you know if anybody's living in there is you should see little covered holes. The holes should be covered at the ends with like some leaves, some dried leaves, or
dirt
with some mud. Exactly. That's going to be, if it's leaves, you got your leaf cutters. If it's mud, you've got your mason bees. So that's how we set it up. It's a nice little home for our little local bee friends. You can learn a lot from watching them. Make sure, 2 things, that you're not pestering them when they do nest there, because they don't need to be bothered. They need to feel nice and safe to use these as a home. And also, they do have stingers, but for the most part, like I was saying in our video, they will not sting you because they're not really trying to protect a big old nest. Most of the times, they'll just try to get away from you, but we still don't want to bother them. We still don't want to get stung. So you want to be careful, and you don't really want to bother them when this is going to be their home. This is going to be the place that they have their babies, and you really don't want to pester them too much. But yep, there is our homemade local bee house. Look how it's not rattling around or everything, so we got in there nice and tight. And that's going to be a nice place for some bees to live. I look forward to hanging this one up ourselves. They're going to be in good shape for next year. Because like I was saying, a lot of the places that they used to live, we clear out a lot of those places when we live in cities and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of places for them to live. So if you give them a little home like this, I almost guarantee that you will have some bee friends around there. So get your setup. If you want to send us some pictures, I would love to see pictures of your notes so I can give you guys credit. But if you feel like setting up your own bee home, I would love to see what you guys come up with. I've seen these done in milk cartons. You take an old paper milk carton and they just pack them full with the tubes. We're using a can today. There's a lot of different ways to do this. The only thing I recommend is put out something that's not going to get soggy and wet, because nobody likes to live in a soggy, wet place, right? They need to stay nice and dry. That's why we like the can. So I hope to see you guys as bee houses, and I hope you guys have a great time working on these with your friends and family. Would you like to say anything before we go, Hunter?
No thanks.
No thanks. Well, you guys have a great day and enjoy this beautiful day. And we will catch you guys next time.